So now we're going to jump back to some of our config in Vite with the aim of having our Go Echo web server serve up the page that we saw with Vite earlier. So instead of it serving this very basic HTML template, we want our Go server running on port 3000 to serve up this page. So we're going to start by looking at the Vite documentation on what to do. And we're going to look at backend integration. So the first step is telling us about a build manifest. We don't need that because we're looking to set it up for development mode. We're not concerned about building for production just yet. And it says that we're going to need to inject these two files into our HTML template. So at vite/client and main.js. It says we're going to have to set the server origin so that these generated asset URLs will be resolved using the backend server URL. So that means any generated asset URLs are going to appear to originate from localhost 3000 instead of 5173. We're also going to have to inject this script, and I think that's the changes we'll have to make. So we'll get those added now. Let's get the Vite configuration added. I'm going to open up my vite.config.js. So what I've done here is set strict port to true. So that means the app will error if the normal port is taken up. And this origin is going to mean that any assets that the Vite server generates are going to appear to originate from localhost 3000, which is what we want. Next, I'm going to make some changes to our Go server so that any requests that it gets for assets actually get forwarded back to the Vite server. Now that might sound confusing because we're telling Vite to say the items originate from here, but this is just for development. So what's going to happen is requests for assets will come to our Go server, and ones that it is able to handle, it will handle. And then other assets, it will just forward on to the Vite development server. So we'll jump back into our configure middleware function, and we're going to set up a couple of handlers. So first of all, we add a static handler. So any file request that comes to the root of our Go server, if it can't be handled by the Go server, it will look in the views public folder for the asset. So say for example this vite.svg, if the request comes in to the root, it will look in this folder for that file. Next, we're going to add a handler for some of the other development files that are requested by Vite in the development mode. So just to explain what's going on in this bit, we'll check for the build_env flag. If it's set, then we are in development, since we only want this code to run if we are in development mode. We will get a URL for the Vite dev server. We're going to fail if that does not parse correctly. Then what we're going to do is create a root group so we can treat all requests to this particular root in a specific way using a group. And this root has development assets, so we're going to call this dev assets. And then what we're going to do is set up a proxy target. So what we want to do is create a middleware that will proxy requests to this root onto another server. So what we do here is we specify a new array of proxy targets, and you have to give each one of them a name and then the URL that you want to proxy stuff onto. So that URL we want to proxy things to is the Vite dev server. We're going to call that our target, and then we're going to create a load balancer. So the way these middleware proxies are routed is that you can create a load balancer to decide how the proxy requests are farmed out. I'm going to create a very simple round robin load balancer, and then what I'm going to do is instruct this dev assets group. So all of the requests that come into this route are going to use this middleware that I'll create. I want to create a proxy middleware with this load balancer config. So this all sums up in that any requests that come into source/assets are proxied onto this Vite dev server URL. One last thing I'm going to add, just to make things easy for myself, is a makefile target to run both the dev client and the dev server at the same time. What that means is if I run make dev, it's going to start the Vite server and the echo server for me simultaneously.